Good morning and welcome to Dateline New Haven on WNHH. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make New Haven tick. The Fortunoff Video Archive makes an invaluable contribution, not just to New Haven, but to the world and to history. It has 4,400 recordings and counting of interviews with survivors of the Holocaust. Our guest today keeps the archive running and humming, including with a big event planned on May 2nd, marking the 40th anniversary of the first 4 interviews with survivors here in town. We'll also hear from some of those survivors themselves through clips of some of those recordings. Say good morning to Stephen Nairn. Thanks for coming in, man.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks
Great
for having
to
me.
see you again, and thanks to Yale New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. So your archive is based at Yale.
Correct.
And you were in here a while back with the woman who ran it for decades, Joanne Rudolph.
Yes.
The door by door, we're going from generation to generation. You took the helm, how long, about a year or two ago?
It's been 4 years now.
Oh, God, how fast does that go? 4 years. But
It's
she's
true.
still, and so you had that tricky task of taking a very important institution from someone who ran it for so long and try to keep it going, keep it meaningful. How's that going?
It's going well, and Joanne is still very much involved with the Fortunoff Video Archive. In fact, this May 2nd event that you mentioned, she'll be speaking at that event along with Professor Lawrence Langer, who is a professor emeritus from Simmons College and also one of, I think, the most important thinkers and writers about testimony as a specific genre of historical documentation. So the two of them will be speaking at the event. One of the survivors who was recorded
40 years ago. Still
on
around.
May 2nd, 1979, will be there, and she'll be reading some of her poetry.
Who's that?
That's Renee Hartman.
Oh, my gosh, Jeffrey Hartman's.
Yes, Jeffrey Hartman's widow. And
She writes poetry.
she does, and she's planning to read one of her poems as well as one of Jeffrey's poems. And then
That
we will
sounds
show excerpts from the first 4 testimonies recorded on that day. It's maybe about 15-20 minutes of each of the testimonies.
So Renee Hartman, so she'll be, that sounds like, I didn't see that in the write-up of the event. So now she also did a videotape testimony.
She was one of the first 4.
One of the first 4. And
Yeah.
where did she survive from? What camp was she in?
Well, she was in a number of camps, but she was born in Czechoslovakia and survived the camp with her sister, who was deaf, and so she's a coda, and helped her sister and herself survive, and was the ears for her sister's ears throughout the entire experience.
Wow.
And of course, her parents did not make it, but she eventually came to New Haven and went to high school in New Haven, and yeah, so
She lives at the Whitney Center now.
yeah, and it'll be at the.
And she's
event will be
totally
at the
with
Whitney
it.
Center.
She's
Of
totally with-
course, yeah, she's an incredible woman, and so this May 2nd event will feature her and Larry and Joanne.
All right. Wow. So that event is May 2nd, 7 p.m. at the Whitney Humanities Center. Lawrence Langer, as Stephen told us, emeritus professor of English at Simmons College, and Joanne W. Rudolph, who was she the founding director or just a longtime director of the
She
Fortunoff
was-
Archives?
Her actual title was archivist, and she was archivist for 32 years,
Wow.
and she really shepherded the collection from its beginnings. There were archivists before her, but none who had a tenure as long as her. And it was Joanne and Jeffrey who really built this collection over the years. She was also an interviewer and still serves as an interviewer
Okay.
for the collection.
And I want to talk in this episode about the importance of these testimonies. But first, let's show people what they look and sound like. We have a testimony here that you said really captures the point of this one is post-war pain, correct?
Correct. I believe this is Rabbi Baruch and G and Helen K, who both talk about the difficulty readjusting to life after the war.
All right. So now you're going to hear it here on WNHH Dateline New Haven, Fortunoff Video Archive testimony.
You know, the man I married and the man he was after the war wasn't the same person. And I'm sure I was not the same person either when I was at 16. And later on, but somehow we had a need for each other because he knew who I was. He was the only person who knew. You know, you feel like you come from nothing, you are nothing, nobody knows you. It's a very strange feeling. You need some contact, some connection. He was my connection. He knew who I was, and I knew who he was. And we stuck it out. We met, I don't know how many years. I don't know, whether it be maybe 35 or whatever. We had 2 children. And he's very different. He copes differently than I do. And we're here to tell you the story, which is, I don't know. I don't know if it was worth it. I don't know if it was worth it because, you know, when I was in concentration camp and even after, I said to myself, you know, after the war, people will learn, they will know, they will see, you know, we will learn. But did we really learn anything? I don't know.
All right. So you were hearing there from the video archives, the Fortunov archives at Yale. And we're talking about that today in Dateline, New Haven with Stephen Nairn, who's the director of the Fortunov Video Archive. They have 4,400 video recordings of interviews with Holocaust survivors. They have a big event coming on May 2nd, the 40th anniversary of the first 4 interviews, including one of those survivors, Renee Hartman, who's still here reading her poetry and telling her story. Stephen Nairn, we just watched. What was the woman's name there again?
That was Helen Kay.
That was one of the first 4.
No, she was not one of the first 4. None of the clips I brought today were of the first 4.
I noticed her crying. How often when you did these interviews do the people cry?
Well, I have to say, first of all, that I'm not an interviewer, but the emotional range, of course, varies dramatically. It's not uncommon for survivors to break down emotionally in the interview. However, our interview methodology allows space for that to happen, and it does happen not infrequently.
Now, Stephen, why is it important that we continue recording the firsthand stories of people who survived the Holocaust? Why do we need to know this happened, and why do we need to preserve the record?
Well, first of all, not everyone has given testimony. I will have to say that due to obvious demographic reasons, we are not recording as many testimonies today as we were in the past. In fact, we haven't recorded a testimony in 2 years, but our team of experienced interviewers are ready to take testimony when.
But 4,400 is a lot.
It is, but it's still not enough. And this sort of documentation can never be complete. Every story can never be complete because most of the people who were in the camps and were experienced Nazi occupation and the occupation of Nazi allied governments and suffered in the Second World War did not survive.
And obviously, most of the survivors are dead too. What a lot of us are scared about is Holocaust revisionism or just apathy. As people die, there's no more living witness to it. So what is the role that now you got 4,400 of these. What's the role that archive is going to play moving forward as anti-Semitism reappears, rears its ugly head back up again throughout the world as we speak?
Well, obviously, this type of documentation, the testimonies are a sort of first line of defense against revisionism and serve as a very important resource in educational initiatives. And I think I try not to be cynical about the sort of impact of education on changing the sort of minds of the youth or informing the youth about the Holocaust. I think it's a difficult sell. It's difficult to teach this history to someone growing up in the 21st century in the United States.
So what role do you play in that?
We as an archive, we're here to serve other organizations that do that sort of educational outreach. We're a very small operation.
But do you hear a lot from schools around the world or around the country? Do they use your archive to show people?
Absolutely. And we do have several edited programs available on our website that are suited for classroom use. Other organizations such as Facing History and ourselves.
Right, great organization. They have the New Haven Academy in New Haven.
Exactly, and they use our materials. And there are many other organizations and documentary filmmakers who include excerpts from the archive in their outreach materials. So that's an important contribution. And of course, in terms of scholarship, since we're located at Yale University, the testimonies are used frequently in classroom teaching at the university level. And
so,
now,
Steve, I know I've asked this a couple times.
Yeah.
What is at stake if this story gets lost? If people, we already have an environment now where fact is disappearing, that people no longer believe that there's a set of facts, like how many people attend an inauguration or whatever.
Right.
To what extent does that get to this? What happens if we stop believing that we can agree that there was this horrible genocide?
this this question haunts me every day, and it should haunt many of us. I don't have a clear answer to this. The only thing I can say is that the history of the Holocaust needs to be examined and re-examined and written and rewritten again and again, and we cannot be complacent or rest upon past success in terms of educational outreach, the construction of numerous museums. We have to continue to do that type of work. We can't assume that it's a fact. We have to reestablish that fact again and again for each generation, and that's a challenge. And I don't have a clear answer to how to do it, but I do think that the archive and archives like the Fortunoff Video Archive have an important role to play in providing the raw material to do that work.
It can't happen without you. Seeing the people tell their stories, which we're doing right now on Dateline New Haven at WNHH, your home for community radio, 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. Stephen Nairn is here from the Fortunoff Video Archive. For 40 years, they've been collecting these invaluable video stories of survivors of the Nazi genocide and the Holocaust. And on May 2nd, the 4th anniversary, there's going to be a great event, 7 p.m., Whitney Humanities Center on the Yale campus. People who put the archive together are going to speak. A woman who gave one of the 4 original testimonies is going to be there. And I got to tell you how grateful I am that you do this work. And I'm grateful that Harry Droz, our station manager, is here because he's helping us see some of these videos. Harry, let's show folks another sample of some video from the Fortunoff Archive.
I remember things, very tender moments with nuns who came at night to dock me, to cover me, and said, Geneviève, ne pleure pas, ne pleure pas. And I remember they would teach me in the dark how to go to Mass because I didn't know what to do, and they would say, you must learn because all the other children will find out that you don't know how to do this. And you must know how to do this because, you're here now. And I love them all. I mean, I have moments, beautiful moments. Then I went to another convent and many other places, always walking during the night, following people who would take us to those places until we hit Louvain. Louvain is a seminar. It's a very big convent. And it's a seminar. They teach the priests to become priests. And they have 6 nuns who cook for them. And I have this little house on the side who cook for them, make the laundry and all that. And that's where I was with those nuns. And one day, the Gestapo came in, and they were Carmelite nuns. And as you know, the men cannot go there. It's one of their rules. They cannot see men. And they knock on the door, and we wander with the guns and all. We want a Jewish child. We know you have a Jewish child there. And the nuns say, absolutely not. Absolutely, we don't have anybody here. And they broke the door. And what I will never forget is that the 6 nuns, they had big basket of laundry that they carry, 3 on the side, because there was a lot of laundry for all these priests. And they pushed me in that laundry to hide me. And they put all the linen on top. That happened like in 1 second. And that's how I was safe in that basket. And they play a game, like they were carrying the laundry. And the Gestapo was looking all over. And I was in that basket with the laundry on top of me. And that's one way I escaped that time. But then for some reason, it started all over. And I had to keep on going from one place to another. Now, why they wanted a 7-year-old child, I will never understand, never. And other children, of course, also. And many children, as a matter of fact, went back on weekends. Their parents wanted to take them on weekends. They never came back. We never saw them. Probably they were arrested.
Were they Jewish? Did you
Yeah.
know?
Oh,
You
yes.
knew? How did you know?
Well, there was something that we knew for some reason. We didn't want to tell openly, but we knew, we had a feel kind of. It's difficult to explain. We had that, like we didn't know exactly what to do in church. We were not like the other children. We didn't know when to go on our knees and things like that. So we knew, like this little girl, you know, said she wanted a piece of chocolate. She didn't have chocolate for a long time. And I said, gee, me too. How come we don't get chocolate and we don't get visitors on weekends? And that's how we find out. Nobody came to see us on a Sunday. All the other children, their parents came to see, and we had nobody. Another priest took me to this other house, and then I wind up in the Ardennes. All the way, and always walking. I mean, that's all what I remember, walking at night with different people. Don't ask me their names because I do not know. And I wind up in Virton, which is in the Ardennes. There I was sent to this marvelous family. They never had children before, never. The minute I walk in there, I feel like I was one of them. The feel I have for those people is absolutely incredible. When I came to their house, I was so used to going to Mass in the morning, to 6 o'clock in the morning Mass, that I would beg them to wake me up and send me to Mass 6 o'clock in the morning, because I was used to it in the convent. And I loved it, and I would cry if they did not wake me 6 o'clock in the morning.
Did they know you were Jewish?
Yes. This man was with the Resistance, the Belgian Resistance. In his youth, he was a colonial in the Congo. He had seen a lot of danger in his youth. And when the Nazi came into Belgium, he was one of the Resistance. He used to blow up bridges and, you know, whatever he could do. And when he heard I was need to hold a little child, he took me in. There also, I changed my name again. In Virton, I was Marie-Rose Dupont. Why? I mean, the whole thing is so absolutely incredible. And as I grow older, it's getting worse. It's absolutely getting worse. And to this day, he writes to me, Marie-Rose Dupont sometimes.
All right, so that's another story. That's an amazing story, Stephen Nairn. We're talking about the Holocaust Video Archives, the Fortunoff Archives at Yale. They have a 40th anniversary event on May 2nd in New Haven. And we're just watching one of the 4,400 videos they have of Rachel G.
Rachel, yeah.
Did she grow up in France or Belgium?
Belgium. She was born in Brussels. And this is quite all the testimonies, of course, in the collection.
Did she remain Jewish, or did she become a practicing Catholic?
Yes, she did. And she was hidden by the Catholic Church in Belgium, as you can see from this
It's so funny
clip.
because we hear such mixed things about the Catholic Church.
From country to country.
The officials of the Catholic Church were anti-Semitic, but yes, there are so many individuals who are true to their faith.
Yes, from country to country, it differs dramatically.
Well, that was an amazing story, Stephen. The basket of laundry. I'm trying to picture these three nuns holding up this basket of laundry with a 7-year-old in it and trying to make it look like it's not so heavy.
Well, and this testimony is one that I often show in the classroom because she was a child describing her experience as a child. Because younger people then they can understand what it means to be a 7-year-old child. They can't necessarily understand a survivor talking about their life as a full-fledged adult.
I gotta tell you, that really got me, that one. Is she still around?
I don't think so. I don't know for a fact.
Well, she was a compelling
she
witness.
Looks like she died in 1987.
So she still got to have a life. She talks about
she was very young. She was very young survivor.
Being a 7-year-old child being held in the basket of laundry by the nuns.
And this was recorded in 1980, so this is a very early testimony. And I think it also demonstrates the fact that we began recording so early in 1979, we were able to capture a lot of stories that would have been lost if we had started much later.
Stephen Nairn, we saw 2 of them. There are 4,400 in total. The Fortunoff Video Archives are doing great work for history that we can remember about the Holocaust, the Nazi Holocaust, so that we try not to repeat those mistakes. Thank you so much for joining us, Stephen Nairn. I want to urge everybody to attend the May 2nd event, 7 p.m., Whitney Humanities Center on the Yale campus. You'll see videos, you'll see people in person, including Renee Hartman, one of the original 4 interviewees for the archive. And where can they find you online, Stephen?
Just Google the Fortunoff Video Archive.
Fortunoff is Fortune, Fortunoff.
Correct.
All right. And thanks to Yale New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. We're going to be back in 5 minutes to talk about a present-day issue, the officer-involved shooting, which is a fancy way of saying 2 cops shot up a car with unarmed people inside the other day in New Haven, and they're from Hamden, one of them. And we have Hamden's Justin Farmer to come talk about the fallout from that. So stay tuned. You can listen to in the meantime, the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long here at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.